Hello and welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. My name is Maddie, Kendra Nielsen's COO, and today you'll be listening to episode 242, The Good Daughter Syndrome, How to Set Boundaries for a Healthier Life with Katherine Fabrizio. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Katherine Fabrizio, and she is a licensed psychotherapist, mother, and author of the Amazon bestseller, internationally published and award-winning book, The Good Daughter Syndrome, Help for Empathic Daughters of Narcissistic, Borderline, or Difficult Mothers Trapped in the Role of the Good Daughter. She lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, where she dances to loud music, talks to her husband about everything, and enjoys her grandchildren without doing any of the work. So thank you so much for coming on the show with us today.
Oh, it's nice to be here, Kendra.
This book sounds incredible. I'm sure it helps a lot of people in this interesting space where they feel a little bit lost. So I'm so excited to jump in and hear more about your story and what brought you to writing this. But before we jump into that, do you mind just sharing a little bit more about yourself that's not in the bio?
Thank you. I'm a grandmother, and I see my daughter parent her children so well that it's both gratifying and humbling. How about that?
And how many children do you have?
2 grown daughters,
2 grown daughters, and how many grandchildren?
3 grandchildren.
Oh, that is so fun. I have 4 children and no grandchildren, not yet.
It is a fun stage because you don't have to do, as I put it, to the work.
Again, thank you for coming on. I definitely want to pick your brain about the book, but first and foremost, do you mind sharing a little bit about your personal story that led you to write The Good Daughter Syndrome and how it's impacted your own journey towards fulfillment?
So to do so, we have to time travel about 35 years ago. Graduated from graduate school, married a nice man, had 2 young daughters, and went in practice, psychotherapy practice with my PhD psychologist. So I thought I had everything that I ever wanted, but I was really paralyzed with depression. I was very tearful. I really didn't know what I wanted. If you'd asked me what I thought about anything, I couldn't tell you, but I would know in a nanosecond if she was okay and if she was okay with me.
Yeah.
People would say we were 2 peas in a pod, but the problem was one pea was always in charge. She was very psychologically savvy. She was very smart. I thought she knew what was best and what was best for me. I thought it was normal to run every decision by her. There were 3 people in the marriage, and I can tell you she had more of the say-so than the 2 of us. That was one person too many. So I went into psychotherapy, as one does, and I discovered that the depression really was coming from so much resentment and so much stifling of my own voice and need to have sovereignty over my own life. And that was a shock to me. Since that time, I've been a psychotherapist for about 35 years. I started to notice women would come in, some of them would be in terrible relationships with a narcissistic partner, or a terrible breakup, or they'd feel anxious or depressed. So much of the time, what I found and uncovered was this dynamic they would have with their mothers that was problematic. 35 years ago, boundaries wasn't a thing. A narcissist was a man who was braggadocious and self-important, and there was a whole lot of cultural mythology around how important a mother was. A mother just wants the best for you. You should honor your mother, all that stuff. So I kept uncovering this again and again. So in healing myself, I took a lot of roads that were unnecessary and a lot of cul-de-sacs, a lot of detours. But I had to learn for myself and my clients what was really effective to heal from this good daughter syndrome. So I really felt compelled to write a book about it and compile and put together everything that I knew in one place. And that's how the Good Daughter Syndrome book was born.
I'm so glad that you did. I have to ask, did that disrupt your relationships? Is your mom still alive, or was this after she passed? She is.
That's a great question. She has passed, but okay, left out a key component. I walked into the office that we shared, this is 5 years ago, with my heart in my throat. I said the words, "Mom, I need to leave home. I'm leaving the practice." That had been her dream, to have a mother-daughter practice.
Yeah.
I knew that it would break her heart, but I knew by that point that staying would break me.
Yeah.
So she survived, and that's why all the examples of what not to do, because I've tried them all, found like all the ways in which you can prolong this misery. But she died about 2 years ago. We stayed in contact. We lived in the same town. My children loved their grandmother. We did get an appropriate separation. I can't say that she ever liked it, but she did come to respect it.
Yeah.
I cared for her. I was holding her hand when she died. And lots of daughters will say to me, I don't know why this is a number one fear. Oh, but my mother might die. I'm like, eventually she probably will.
Yeah.
And it was almost weird in that moment. I had the thought, all the unnecessary guilt. I think she would have been okay. Like I said, I don't think she would ever like it, but it did work out. It really informed my parenting of my own two daughters who, as I mentioned, are grown.
Yeah. So how long ago was your book published?
Literally 2 years ago. I did not wait for her to pass to publish it, and she had dementia in the last 5 years. Couldn't have. I wrote a book before it. A starter book wasn't very good, but she knew I was up front, and like the psychotherapist part of her kind of admired me for it. It was an interesting relationship.
A big dynamic there of you both being in the mental health space and healing from all of these things. And it sounds like your mom knew the subject matter and that maybe she was part of that.
She did. My mother understood a lot about psychology. What was hard for her was to sustain it. So, as we know, defenses, people are driven to do what they're doing. So, even if you reach like this golden place that so many good daughters work and work for decades and decades to get to,
Yeah.
and your mom, like, there's an aha moment and she gets it. If she has these defenses, needs to be superior, those will override her understanding
Yeah.
more times than not, I would say, in my
Yeah.
experience.
So for those listeners that are hearing your story and saying, okay, that kind of sounds like something I'm experiencing, how could you break it down for them to really know if this book might be something that would benefit them? Like, how can they identify it? Because I know sometimes it can be elusive.
If you find yourself trying to please a mom who rarely, if ever, is pleased, that's one thing to look at. If you feel underneath it all that you're responsible for her emotional well-being, that's another check. If you need for mom to be and okay with you in order for you to feel settled and okay with yourself, chances are this good daughter syndrome applies to you. There are different facets of it, but I would say when your main emotional relationship is your mother, despite sometimes being partnered, married, if that's your main emotional relationship and it feels unsettled, it never feels good, you're always working to make sure that it's okay, that's definitely a way to tell if you're in this syndrome. Thumbnail, like, how do you tell? You can break it down into these other components, but that kind of means that your developmental need to individuate, psychological word, to become your own person, delayed. You haven't done it yet. You're still trying to please her. You're still watching out for her emotional well-being. And it doesn't mean that two people, a mother and daughter, don't care about each other.
Right.
You can care about your mom very deeply, but without being controlled
Right.
by her emotions, her judgment of you.
I know this is a pretty complex topic, so I have so many questions. So this good daughter role that they might get in, how can they start to recognize and break free from, you talked about in the book about unconscious agreements they've made with their mother. Is that tied to individuation, or maybe explain that a little bit?
Certainly. If you think about the tip of the iceberg is the setting boundaries, is what it looks like on the outside. More importantly, those expectations that you are going to say, prop her up. If you think mom knows best, if she can't apologize, give you a genuine apology. She'll say, I'm sorry, but if you have trouble making decisions, you second doubt yourself, and you have an internalized mother, that's called the self-doubt trap. And you feel if you make a mistake, it's the end of the world. Or if you expect yourself to read the subtext of what people are saying. And if your mom, just can't take her at face value, you have to mind read. You have to adjust to the hidden agenda. Not what's stated, but what's expected.
Yeah. So it sounds like then you're really walking on eggshells. You're constantly trying to tend to their feelings and them rather than really focus on your own needs and how you can improve your mental health and wellness instead of being so ultra focused on whether it's your mother. Do you start to care more about everyone in that way, or is it mostly focused on your mother?
I would say when people have this primary attachment, they carry it implicitly, unconsciously, they carry it out in all kinds of relationships. Most likely, as we know, romantic relationships. But it could also be like at work, if you're always doing what the boss wants you to do and never sticking up for yourself. If
Right.
you're a people pleaser, can't say no to anybody without fear of disappointing them or then feeling rejected. Again, that below the surface, it's so insidious. And they'll have all these complaints. And then you uncover they have this template, this attachment template that started off because we're so biologically dependent on parents when we're little.
Right.
Say our survival brain signs a contract that our adult brain doesn't know that we've made. And we're acting out of those unconscious assumptions or the shiny ball. All of a sudden, you're sticking up for yourself at work or you're making decisions and they don't have to be 100% right all the time. Or you're trusting your own intuition. You're not always outsourcing your self-esteem. It's problematic, but the flip side of it is when you address it, pays
Yeah.
off both ways.
You said you're a psychotherapist, right?
Clinical psychology and I've been practicing for about 35 years.
Yeah. I'm sure you were on this journey somewhat even before then. And what are some healing steps that you did to not then do some of those same things with your own daughters?
You start off and you notice you're frustrated. I was frustrated and I was exhausted. I was
Yeah.
depressed. I was anxious. And so what do? You get into therapy.
Yeah.
And then nowadays you can seek out books. There's all kinds of education. And so this is an awakening process. And I don't think you can rush it. It can't all be in your head
Mhm.
because it's very much in your body in a feeling sense. After you do that, then we suggest people set very small boundary. Now, a mistake a lot of people go, Mom, I read a blog and I figured out you're a narcissist. So what are you going to do about that? Are you going to get in therapy and fix yourself? It tends to backfire. So what I suggest is people set a small boundary, and this can be different for everybody. Maybe it's, I'm not going to come this year for the holidays. Or maybe it's, I'm not going to call you every day.
Yeah.
So it's different for everybody. You use the pushback that you get or the response that you get as data you can use. So, many times daughters will say, I tried setting a boundary, but she won't let me.
Yeah.
Or I tried setting a boundary and she got so upset, it's just not worth it. And I would say, all those are very predictable. Of course, if this dynamic has been around getting her needs met, she's not going to like it. And if you're lucky enough, and some moms just want clarification, and so you set the boundary and she goes, okay, that makes sense. That's a good problem to have, right? If she comes at you with all kinds of defense, goes on the offense, or says, I guess I'm just a terrible mother. What have I ever done to you to deserve this? That's data. You have most likely come upon a whole nest of expectations, power struggles. Chances are, if you assert your selfhood in any way and your needs, and they're totally unwelcomed, that tells you something.
Yeah.
So you set that small boundary, use the data you get back, and know what you're up against. Then you might get into therapy. You might have your best friends, your posse that you can talk to, get your partner on board. And here comes the hard part: following through, remaining consistent, not caving. And that's so much easier said than done. But if you don't do it, like you have just a few cracks at it, I would say. And I know for myself, the resentment would build up. And finally, I would like blurt out something and I would sound unhinged and overreactive. And my mother would say, "What's wrong with you?" And I would be like, "I don't know. I guess I'm just mad at my husband," or triangulate, or I didn't mean to, blah, 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 and backpedal.
So you noticed this pattern where you started to explore your resentments in the beginning. You're like, what is going on? Trying to unpack it, like maybe doing books or therapy and starting out small, starting with a boundary, getting back that data, and then the tricky part that you mentioned, maintaining that boundary, because we know this, right? People that we need the boundaries with the most are the ones that are really going to push against it, resist it, and do everything in their power to tear that boundary down. So it's hard to do that. And sounds like you found a way to do that and now have a great relationship with your daughters.
I do. It's more about repair, it's more about listening. So it's not about becoming a perfect mom. It's about valuing. Just because I intended something, that's not necessarily how it landed with them.
Yeah.
I would back up and say it's probably more informative to talk about the things that I did that did not move me forward. Spending an entire weekend going back and forth with the emails, arguing my case, really wanting to get that understanding.
Yeah.
And it just sapped so much energy. And looking back, I can see I really wanted her permission for me to be my own person. I really wanted her approval. And that was countering to what she needed from me. She needed to be in charge. She needed to be the one in the know. She needed to not let me go. So I would say it's so tempting, and I see this all the time. Bless their hearts, clients come in and it's so upsetting to say, "Oh, my mother's got these narcissistic tendencies, or she's borderline or something." And the tendencies are run to mom and go, "Mom, look at this."
Yeah.
And if she really has that, defenses are very strong things. And I think you can't leapfrog. It's like I can make it easier. I can shorten the learning curve. I can't say just in 5 steps, you're going to do this. Anybody can say that. Set healthy boundaries. Stand up to your mom. Be your own person. Okay. You were talking to one woman who couldn't leave her narcissistic partner. And I think you put that so beautifully. You were talking on your podcast about how she just needed to be witnessed. That point. She just
Right.
needed somebody to validate her feelings. And I think it's so easy to lose sight of that, to meet people where they are because they're good reasons, you know, why they are. And it can be terrifying to stand up to the same mom who kept you from running into traffic, who kept your hand off the hot stove.
You love her so deeply. You want that relationship. And there is that complicated, complex grief of not having that relationship that you hoped, especially as you move forward and think about, okay, what does this mean with setting those boundaries, maintaining those boundaries, letting
Yeah.
go of her disapproval?
But I was really looking for her permission. Many daughters saying, if I just made this clear, if only she would listen. I had this ironclad logic. And my mother's a very smart person, but her need to be right, her need to not let go of me from her own abandonment wounds overrode her intellect.
Yeah.
And that was mind boggling. It's only after looking back that I could see it clearly at the time. It was hard to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine that's complicated as you get older and you start to see it through a different lens. Like you talked about how it was more about what her needs were, and you were not even focused at any point on your own needs. And now,
Mm.
later in adulthood, you came to this point, but no, I can't just keep focusing on your needs. Like you're my mother. And how complicated that must feel and frustrating. The healing that's required from that. Yeah, I can see how this would resonate with a lot of people, like feeling like that same desire to grow close to your parents, but not really knowing how to as a
Mhm.
narcissist, like how that can even be possible. Do you feel like you were able to, with your mother, have some sort of closeness that you came to peace with before she passed, despite her narcissism?
It was never completely smooth. Her love for her grandchildren, she could see it once removed. We could talk about it, and she would admire my parenting. Sometimes she would give it to me. We did reach sometimes she would say I was a better therapist than she was, which is a very big deal. She was also in analysis for 10 years, so she was a work in progress.
Mhm.
She was a perfect mom for me to write this book because I saw what was possible and I saw what kind of stayed. Both unfolded. And even as a mother, I could feel the pull. Like I wanted to be right. What
Yeah.
mother does it? Or pass down your wisdom.
Mhm.
But when I could see that it was at the expense, if I lorded my authority over my kids, when I could see it would just crush their little self esteem, I could do something different. When they graduated from college, got married, the letting go was so hard. But I tried not to lay that at their feet. I tried to do the work to grieve.
You even said in the beginning, and I bet this also resonates with listeners, about how there was always 3 people in your marriage.
Yeah, but they were just very practical things. Like we were buying a house and she had equal input. It started off with planning the wedding.
Mhm.
As the wedding was my mother's, it wasn't for me. I was so busy trying to get her approval and talk about things that in retrospect I can look back and I was really turning to her, whereas I should have thought, said, Mom, that's not for us to discuss or us to come to terms with. I did that later on. She didn't like it.
Oh, I bet not.
Not at all.
Inner strength for sure.
Inner strength.
You mentioned in your book 4 traps that keep daughters stuck in unhealthy patterns. Do you mind sharing a little bit about those traps and which one you find most common?
Sure. The first one I called the never good enough trap.
Mhm.
So when mom needs to be right and
Mhm.
superior, she needs for you to not be the one in the know.
Yeah.
Daughters want approval. They want for their moms to think that they are smart.
Mhm.
And but if mom needs to be above you, then she can never give it to you. So she's always moving the goalpost. You see this particularly, of course, in narcissistic moms.
Right.
They just can't give it to you. So daughters strive and strive, and they don't realize the game is rigged. So they keep trying to be good enough. Once I'm good enough, then mom's going to be okay. She's going to finally say, anoint me. You are good enough to be an adult now. Make your own decisions. The guilt trap is the most common. And that is unconscious agreement to feel responsible for your mom's well being. I can't be okay if mom's upset with me. So that's where you have more of a codependent relationship. And you
Yeah.
feel guilty anytime you say no, anytime you exert yourself. Some women just feel guilty for being happy. It's like they can't give themselves internal permission. The third trap is the internalized mom. I call it the self doubt trap. So if mom is critical of you or even fearful for you, and she verbalizes this all throughout development, you can have an internalized negative mom voice in your head and you can't really make decisions because that voice of doubt is playing, really looking to get her permission to do something, and you're not relying on your own internal trust system. The
Mhm.
fourth one, I think, is probably the most unconscious, the mixed message trap. And that's where women, maybe particularly Southern women, they say one thing and mean another. Male narcissists, we can usually see them coming a mile away.
Mhm.
So women, many times you get covert, vulnerable, narcissistic moms who will say, they know what's socially acceptable. They'll say one thing, but their gestures, the subtext, the hidden agenda is something that the daughter's all the time trying to read because she's disapproved of, shamed. She can't take anything at face value. She's always looking for the subtext and mixed messages.
Okay. The guilt trap, the self doubt, and the mixed message. Is
Mixed
that right?
message traps.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you could do a podcast episode or a book on each one of those almost, right?
Oh. I do break them up in the book, and then I say how to escape from each one.
I think there's a lot of listeners that'll be like, okay, I need to unpack this. How can I do this? Well, and so much of this resonates, I'm sure, with so many people, but really learning how to let go of that need for permission and approval and learning how to trust yourself and slowly
Mhm.
but surely working towards that because that's probably so much in the beginning when your whole life you've been scrambling for that.
And that's the thing, because you have, as opposed to, say, you have a bad boyfriend, you fall in with him and then you break up and you're like, oh, you see it 100%. But when it's your mother, this stuff becomes so encoded, so implicit, tied to our cognitive immature structures, tied to our very survival. Our logic brain can say, set a boundary, grown ass woman, or whatever. And then we go to do it and we feel terrified. Like when I walk into my mother's office, it was like this disembodied voice. It said, I need to leave home. I practiced it. My stomach dropped. I could hear ringing in my ears just to say this simple thing. But that
Right.
was my child survival brain. We're in trouble. This is a 5 alarm fire. Danger, danger. And that's real. You're not wimpy and weak if you struggle with this. And I think that's so important. And that we work with individual clients, it takes time and you just can have one bite at a time. And I think you have to ally yourself with the idea that individuation, becoming your own person is good. Just getting mad at mom and blowing off steam or arguing with her, it's like you can't sustain that over the long term. A good daughter, we want to be good. We want to be a good person.
Right. And
We want to do the healthy thing that's right. So I think, and I had a mentor early on who reinforced that for me as well. And I think without her, I couldn't have made the changes because I had to reconcile in my own mind. I wasn't just being a brat or obnoxious. I was doing something that was healthy and right and good. And it was my mother's limitation, not mine.
it sounds like you probably at times even thought you were crazy, really
Yeah.
exactly goes back to that individuation, right? Just really hard to know where you begin and somebody else ends, especially your mother, and untangling those relationships to really understand yourself, your wants, your needs, and how that can be such a long process. And it takes so much courage, which you ended up
Mhm.
doing, but it wasn't like an overnight thing.
It wasn't. And I know, and people need to unpack things in therapy or with a best friend. Once you start to look back and you look at these junctures of separation. So when I went to kindergarten, how did that go? Did it have separation anxiety? When I was a teenager, was it tense or was it Armageddon? All of these junctures of separation, I had, can I just tell you this one story? So I had a client come in a couple of decades ago, and she came in and she said, what brings you here? And she said, my mother's dying. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. She said, that's not my problem. And she said, the problem is she's dying and I've never lived. The night before I went to college, she cried all night. So I told her in the morning, don't worry, Mom, I'm not going to leave you. I won't go. Every boyfriend I brought home, she found something wrong with. So I never married. So I didn't get an education. I didn't marry or have children. And now it's too late for all that. And my mother's going to leave me alone. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. You don't have forever. This stuff plays out. And I can't tell you how many older clients I have. They're 60 and their mothers are living into their 90s and they're a primary caregiver. And they're like, I always thought she will wake up and appreciate me someday. And she's worse than she's ever been. And I'm stuck taking care of her. Take her an older person, do the hard work when you're young, take the
Yeah.
hits, do the thing that needs to be done because you're breaking cycles for your own children. And the payoff is it's really worth it if you find yourself in this situation.
I really appreciate you sharing that story too, because I think that showcases it really well. She's dying and I never lived. And how much that resonates with a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of listeners, just feeling like they're stuck in this space where they're scrambling for that approval, that permission, even that appreciation. And they're finding themselves holding back from really living life fully. So,
Mhm.
my final question for you today then is, we talked about this being really elusive and hard to know how to do it and how to not feel crazy. What are just some simple beginning steps that they can take to start living their own life and start healing when they doubt themselves so much?
I would say set that small boundary, and if you can't do that, exert a preference. And this may sound like almost laughable, but maybe you don't want the second piece of pie, or maybe you'd rather go to this restaurant and not that restaurant. Exchange the word need for want. So I know what I would say when I wanted to get out of something with my mother. It's like she wanted me to go to the opera all the time.
Mm.
And I actually don't like the opera. So there's a big confession. So I finally got the courage to say, I don't want to go to the opera. I would usually say, oh, I'm so busy with work and the kids, and I need to try to get out of things with her. But try that on for size and see how foreign that feels. For women, lots of times it does feel foreign to just exert, or maybe you want to spend a couple less hours at a holiday gathering. I'm going to go home now. Just state what you're going to do without explanation. That's a big one. And challenge yourself. See if you can do this. And that sounds really small, but if you're in these traps, it gets at the implicit agreements.
Oh, absolutely.
Uncomfortable, you know you're onto something.
And you say that they sound simple, but I'm just thinking of those really big personalities. I'm like, no, that sounds like terrifying. I think those sound
Mhm,
very courageous, big steps, even. So just say, I don't want
mhm.
to, and just state it without explaining. And those people pleasers, this probably resonates with them too, those that want to smooth things over. So maybe many of us listening could practice some of these things to increase that individuation and to start living. And I really appreciate your
Yeah.
insight, ways to just lean into that a little bit more and live a more fulfilling life.
Fulfilling life. Yeah, become your own woman. We always say that about a man. He's his own man. How about becoming your own woman? Imagine that.
Absolutely. Catherine, where can we find your book? Or if we want to learn anything more about you, do you have a website we could go to?
All you need to do is Google the good daughter syndrome. My book will pop up. My website will pop up. Catherine Fabrizio, but you don't even need to remember that. Just the good daughter syndrome, if it resonates with where you are.
Mm.
And you can read blogs. I have a quiz that asks you a series of questions to see whether or not you're in the syndrome. That's probably the best first step.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, I love quizzes too. I'll have to check that out myself.
Oh,
So thank you again for coming on the show, Catherine. Very insightful and I think wonderful tips for us. So thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. As a reminder, check out our new online courses that will help you take your personal and family fulfillment to the next level. We have Ignite Your Life, Mend Your Marriage, Find Your Focus, Heal Your Home, and Launch Your Podcast, as well as many more to come. So please head over to our website and also leave us a review so that we can get found and help spread out our positive ripples. Have a wonderful day.